Before I talk about the actual AP poll, I wanted to give a shout out to PJ Brown. The moment I saw there was one first place vote for UConn, I knew I had to look at that person's list because it was going to be good. His list is way better than the actual AP poll. None of this nonsense like the Gamecocks outside the top 5, Iowa and UCLA in the top 4. There's a few weird things like Virginia Tech being 15. He must have a beef with the team or something, but I like his list a lot because it seems a lot less fueled by the hype machine of certain teams and more on what they actually have on their roster. On the other hand, I'm not going to say this dude's name, but sir, I don't know what sport this list is for, but there's no way it's for women basketball. But time for the official AP poll. From what I've seen, a lot of people aren't happy about it. But to be fair, that happens every AP poll. After skimming through it, I think it's okay. I'd say about 60% is good. The other 40% is questionable. When I first looked at the poll, I see two glaring omissions. Where the heck is Kansas State? Seriously. They were an above 500 team without their best player the entire season. Ayoka Lee is coming back and will tear the Big 12 up. She's about to remind people that she's 6'6" and averaged 23 and 10 before she tore her ACL. Iowa better play with something safe. KSU already beat them last year. Without Ayoka, with her being back and Iowa's front court being weaker, they are on upset watch. Jada Williams sent a laughing emoji when she saw Arizona wasn't ranked on one of the preseason polls, and I agree with her. They are expected to fall off because they only have 5 returning players, but that means nothing. Respectfully, little value was lost. Adia Barnes is the master of maximizing a mediocre roster. They finished in the top 25 last season and only had 2 all-conference players on the team. After listening to her on the Pac-12 Media Day, something tells me Barnes did not like the roster she had last year. At all. Now she has 2 amazing freshmen in Brad Cunningham and Jada Williams. There's some other teams that can be argued on here, like Michigan, Miami, and Kansas, a few others too, but Kansas State and Arizona not being here is just insane. I'm sure someone will ask, who would you take out? That's easy. I apologize to Creighton fans, but I'm tired of seeing them on these polls. They have been living off of their Iowa tournament upset for way too long. They haven't shown anything since then. They got destroyed by Mississippi State in the first round of the tournament and literally only had 1 ranked win last year. There's no reason they should be here. I'm not going to spend too much time on the ranking 25 through 13. I think for the most part it's interchangeable. I'll quickly go through it. Mississippi State could be moved up a few spots. Washington State and Creighton need to go. Illinois is fine. A legitimate argument for USC can be made for top 15. Baylor is fine. Florida State and Louisville are low. UNC is fine. Stanford I'll touch on later in the video. Maryland's placement makes sense. Texas at best is 18. I don't think they are better than any of the teams on the screen. I love Ole Miss placement. Coach Yo is building something serious. They might mess around and finish 3rd in the SEC. Tennessee is ranked number 11. I've always appreciated Tennessee taking tough non-conference schedules, but they definitely bit off more than they can chew. Tennessee might mess around and have 5 losses before conference play starts. Now we get into the top 10. I think this is where the real problems start. I was nitpicking choices here and there in the top 25, but it's not a big deal because they can fix it as the season goes on. But the way they structured the top 10 is really problematic because there's hardly any wiggle room. Before I get into that, there's 4 placements I don't have an issue with. That's Utah at 5. Makes a ton of sense. LSU and UConn being top 2 is pretty much unanimous. A lot of people are mad about Virginia Tech being ranked number 7, but I think it's very fair. Taylor Soule and Traylor were a huge part of what they were doing. I think Virginia Tech messed up big time with Ashley Owusu. If she gets healthy, they are going to regret not having her this season. But everything else is a complete mess. I'm not going to talk about the top 10 in order. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Let's start with Iowa at number 3. I don't like this at all. Caitlin Clark is one of the greatest college players we have ever seen, but at the end of the day, it's a team game. Losing Monica Sonato and McKenna Warnock will hurt a lot more than people think. Addison O'Grady has shown promise, but there's still a huge gap between her and Sonato. I don't know if a year is enough time to close that. I hear a lot of people expecting Stuelke to make a huge jump. Let's say this does happen, she still has to fix her free throw shooting, because right now she's going to be literally unplayable in the fourth quarter if the game is close. As soon as she catches the ball, she's getting fouled. I don't know if 46% from the free throw line is the worst in the NCAA, but I can't imagine there's too many shooting worse than that. But this is the real reason it's an issue. Iowa plays one ranked team in their entire out-of-conference schedule. Just one. They will likely go undefeated until Big Ten play. This means Iowa might be locked in the 3 spot the entire regular season, because looking at their conference schedule, they will at most drop 2 or 3. You will get a situation very similar to last year that we saw with Indiana. Once they got into the top 2 spot, they were pretty much unmovable. Speaking of Indiana, they are closer to being on the level of Stanford than they are a team like Virginia Tech. I don't understand the logic behind Indiana still being considered a top 10 team, but Stanford is as low as 15. They both lost a guard pivotal to their offense. I already gave my opinions on how good Notre Dame will be. I understand most people won't think of Notre Dame the same way I do, but no matter what, there's no way this team is number 10, but UCLA is number 4. Their roster strength is extremely similar. Either Notre Dame needs to be moved up or UCLA needs to be dropped a lot. Ohio State at 7 definitely seems low. Cody McMahon dominated the tournament as a freshman. J.C. Sheldon will be fully healthy again. Ohio adding Celeste Taylor is quietly one of the best moves that happened during the offseason. If you ask me what's the worst thing about this list, it's by far South Carolina's placement. I know they lost a bunch of key pieces to the draft, but do the AP voters not remember 2019 at all? Dawn had a team with only 2 seniors, and almost the entire team was a freshman or sophomore. That team only went 33-1 and dominated the SEC tournament. Is this team going to be that dominant? Probably not. But saying they are number 6 is crazy. Dawn has been stocking up on top recruits for the past 3 years. They weren't playing because of lack of skill. It was because they were backups to one of the best starting 5s of all time. What's funny is Notre Dame only being ranked number 10 by extension will hurt South Carolina, because here's what will happen. If Notre Dame beats South Carolina, they won't give Notre Dame credit for beating them. They'll use that as an excuse to say South Carolina isn't that great this year. If South Carolina wins, they don't have to move them up because they can blame it on Olivia Miles' injury. But that's all I have to say on this poll. I may or may not give my opinion on what I think the top 10 teams are before the season starts. I haven't decided yet because there's a bunch of other videos to get done before the season. As always, thanks for watching.